Imagine walking into a private garage and finding cars rarer than some Ferraris, each one carrying a hidden story. Paul Walker didn't just collect fast machines, he hunted down the untouchable. Like the 2005 Ford GT in Mark IV Red without stripes, one of only 14 ever built. These weren't display pieces, they were secrets on wheels, and each one revealed a side of Walker most fans never knew. Top 1 255 Ford GT, Mark IV Red Stripe Delete. When Ford revived the GT in 2005, nostalgia wasn't enough. The new car had to outrun ghosts. In Mark IV Red, with the over-the-top stripes deleted, it looked like pure intent Le Mans heritage without costume. Rarer than rumor, this sleeper spec telegraphed confidence. No makeup, just speed. The shape is a reverent remix of the GT40, low roofline, round headlamps, gaping side intakes, and a rear clamshell that lifts like a race car. No white band slash across the hood, the long red expanse amplifies the stance. Optional BBS forged wheels tuck under wide arches. Red Brembo calipers glint behind them. Out back, twin round tail lamps frame center exit exhaust and an underbody diffuser. Open the clamshell and it's art supercharger whine waiting under satin silver braces. Inside, function rules. Ebony leather bucket seats with GT40-style perforations clamp you in place. An aluminum shift knob, toggle-style switches, and large analog gauges give a purposeful, machined vibe. You could spec a Macintosh head unit, but the music most owners chase is mechanical, blower, gears, induction. The cabin is livable. Decent sightlines, cold air conditioning, and a driving position that feels like strapping on a tool. Underneath, engineering matches the theater. An extruded aluminum space frame wears aluminum panels. Unequal length control arms and coilovers dampers sit at each corner. Massive Brembo 4-piston brakes bite vented rotors, and sticky Goodyear Eagle F1S 2135/45 ZR18 front, 315/40 ZR19 rear plant the car to the pavement. It is brutally stable at speed, yet precise enough to place with fingertips. Visually, deleting the over-the-top stripes changes the car's attitude. Proportions read longer and lower, the teardrop canopy dominates, and the Mark IV hue nods to Ford's 60s racers. The rocker panel, Ford GT side stripe, usually remains, a quiet signature instead of billboard livery. Here's the shock, this stripe delete isn't some dealer gimmick, it's among the rarest configurations. In 2005, Ford built 2,022 GTs, but only 14 left the factory in Mark IV Red, without the over-the-top Le Mans stripes. The restraint hides a very maximal powertrain, a 5.4-liter DOHC aluminum V8 topped by an Eaton supercharger, factory rated at 550 horsepower and 500 pound-feet. Row the Ricardo 6-speed and the GT lunges to 60 mph in about 3.5 seconds, ripping the quarter mile in roughly 11.6 seconds at 128 mph. A dry sump system keeps the engine low and cool, while a limited slip differential and tight gearing deliver relentless traction exiting corners. Rarity meets reality. A Stripe Colette Mark IV Red GT isn't just collectible, it is a statement that the car's shape doesn't need graphics to be legendary. Many examples are 3-option cars, BBS wheels, Macintosh audio, painted calipers choosing performance and subtlety over billboard stripes. Values followed the story. Limited numbers, race pedigree, and performance that still embarrasses modern pretenders. Even parked, the stance radiates intent. In motion, it compresses time, delivering the theater of Ford's Le Mans past with present-day reliability and serviceability. Every drive feels ceremonial yet vicious, the kind of experience Walker prized when a machine's narrative matches its speed. Truly unforgettable. But Walker's collection wasn't built on American thunder alone. His taste consistently drifted toward machines that shed weight and chased lap times, even if that meant giving up comfort. Top 2. 1995 BMW M3 Lightweight. E36 LTW. In the mid-1990s, BMW's M division wanted to prove that finesse could be just as devastating as brute force. The result was the 1995 BMW M3 Lightweight, known as the LTW. A car stripped down, sharpened, and whispered about among enthusiasts. Paul Walker didn't just admire one he owned, multiple. On first glance, the E36 Lightweight looked familiar. Alpine white paint, M-stripes sweeping across the hood and trunk, factory rear wing standing proud. But the details gave it away. Aluminum doors replaced steel, sound deadening was ripped out, air conditioning and radios were deleted, even the undercoating was lighter. BMW wasn't trying to sell comfort here, it was trying to homologate a race car. Inside, the philosophy continued. Manual cloth Vaders, those heavily bolstered sport seats, kept you in place. No luxury trim, no heavy options, just the essentials. Gauges angled toward the driver, a stubby shifter, and that thick M steering wheel. The cabin felt hollow compared to a normal M3, but that hollowness was the point. The exterior told the story of intent. The rear wing was borrowed directly from BMW's parts bin for its racing program. Lightweight 5-spoke forged wheels, 17 inches, wore sticky rubber. And underneath, a 3.23 limited-slip differential. Stiffer suspension and shorter springs dialed the car's reflexes up to 11. The surprise wasn't a massive horsepower bump, it was how BMW used less to give more. Under the hood sat the familiar 3-liter inline-6 S50 B30 US, rated at 240 horsepower and 225 pound-feet of torque. Same output as a standard US E36 M3. But by cutting over 200 pounds of weight, the LTW hit 0 to 60 mph in 5.5 seconds and pulled quarter miles in the low 14s. The sharper gearing and firmer suspension meant it danced through corners where heavier rivals lumbered. And then came the twist of rarity. BMW built only 126 lightweights for the US market. Each came with a factory promise that the engines had been blueprinted, assembled with tighter tolerances for peak performance. Each came with a trunk kit containing extra parts front, splitters, an adjustable rear wing, and cross-brace struts that owners could install if they wanted track-ready aero. In Paul Walker's collection, the M3 Lightweight wasn't just another German coupe, it was proof of his respect for drivers' cars. He didn't keep one, he kept multiple, a testament to how highly he valued them. For collectors today, the LTW is a crown jewel of the E36 era. Prices have soared as enthusiasts realize how rare and purposeful these cars were. Beyond the market, the M3 Lightweight proved that raw horsepower wasn't everything. In an era where American muscle cars were fighting to keep up with turbos and V8 torque, BMW's recipe was simple: balance, precision, and weight loss. The car delivered a different kind of shock, showing that agility could embarrass raw strength. The M3 Lightweight was a scalpel, honed for the track and stripped of excess. But Paul Walker's collection wasn't limited to European finesse. Parked nearby was a heavyweight brute from Detroit's glory days, a car so rare and forceful it carried a legendary badge. Top 3 1969 Ford Mustang Boss 429. Some Mustangs were born to cruise Main Street. The Boss 429 was born to intimidate NASCAR. In 1969, Ford shoehorned a massive semi-Hemi V8 into the Mustang's engine bay, creating one of the rarest, most menacing muscle cars of the era. Paul Walker owned one, a reminder of Detroit's rawest thunder. The Boss 429 didn't start with the Mustang. It started with NASCAR. To qualify its new 429 cubic inch V8 for competition, Ford needed to build street cars with the same engine. The Mustang became the host. But this wasn't a standard drop-in. Carcraft, Ford's specialty contractor, was tasked with modifying the Mustang's front structure to wedge the engine in. On the outside, the Boss 429 was subtle yet imposing. A wide stance, functional hood scoop, Magnum 500 wheels, and discreet Boss 429 fender decals set it apart. Available in colors like Raven Black, Royal Maroon, and Wimbledon White, it didn't need stripes or flash. It looked purposeful, like a predator waiting to strike. Inside, it was all business. Black vinyl buckets, a simple dash, and the familiar Mustang layout. Unlike the stripped-down BMW M3 Lightweight, the Boss 429 wasn't about shedding weight. It was about hosting a monster. Comfort features like AM radios and power steering could be optioned, but the focus was under the hood. That hood concealed one of the most legendary Ford engines ever built. The 429 cubic inch semi-hemispherical V8, factory rated at 375 horsepower, but in reality capable of over 500 horsepower, with minimal tuning. Mated to a 4-speed top-loader manual and a 3.1 traction-lock rear axle, it turned the Mustang into a street-legal stock car. Performance numbers reflected its brute force, 0 to 60 mph in about 5.3 seconds, quarter-mile in the low 13s. But the real story was its rarity. Ford produced just 859 Boss 429s in 1969 and 499 more in 1970. That made it scarcer than many exotics of its time. Each car carried a unique Carcraft number stamped into the door, a sign of its hand-built origins. The Boss 429 was never about volume sales, it was about homologation and dominance. On the street, it shocked rivals with its torque-heavy delivery. At auctions today, these cars routinely fetch 6 to 7 figures, especially examples like Walker's, which tied Hollywood fame to Ford's racing heritage. For collectors, owning a Boss 429 is like holding lightning in a bottle. For Walker, the Boss wasn't just about speed. It represented authenticity, a piece of American muscle history that could stand shoulder to shoulder with his European exotics. Its presence in his garage balanced the collection, reminding fans that he valued Detroit muscle as much as Bavarian precision or Italian flair. The Boss 429 was thunder incarnate, heavy, loud, and built for domination. But Walker's taste also extended to lightweight, scalpel-like machines from Europe. Next in his secret collection was a Porsche, bred for the racetrack, yet somehow legal for the street. Top 4, 1973 Porsche 911 Carrera RS 2.7. Among Porsche purists, 3 numbers carry mythical weight: 2.7 RS. In 1973, Porsche created the Carrera RS 2.7, not just as a sports car, but as a homologation special for racing. Lightweight, razor-sharp, and built in small numbers, it has become one of the most sought-after 911s in history. Paul Walker owned one, cementing its status as a crown jewel in his garage. The Carrera RS 2.7 started life as a homologation requirement for Group 4 racing. Porsche needed at least 500 street cars, but demand far exceeded expectations, leading to 1,580 examples being built in total. Even so, its rarity remains undeniable, with only 200 lightweight M471 versions and 1,308 tour M472. On the outside, the RS 2.7 was defined by its ducktail rear spoiler, the first factory-installed aerodynamic aid on a production 911. It reduced rear-end lift and became an icon in itself. Flared rear arches allowed wider wheels, while Carrera script decals stretched boldly along the doors. Colors ranged from Grand Prix white with contrasting graphics to vivid oranges and greens that screamed motorsport. Inside, the focus was weight reduction. The lightweight models ditched rear seats, sound insulation, and even armrests. Door cards were simple pull-strap affairs. The touring version added back modest comforts like carpeting and leather-trimmed sport seats, but the cabin still carried an elemental, no-nonsense feel. Walker's RS leaned closer to purity than plushness. Underneath, the RS 2.7 carried a 2.7-liter flat-six engine, producing 210 horsepower at 6,300 RPM and 188 pound-feet of torque. It may sound modest by American standards, but the car weighed just over 2,100 pounds. That translated into blistering performance for the era, 0 to 60 mph in 5.5 seconds, with a top speed of 152 mph. The twist was not just speed, but balance. While American muscle cars relied on brute force V8s, the RS 2.7 stunned with agility. A close ratio, 5-speed manual, sharp steering, and perfectly tuned suspension made it as quick through corners as it was on straights. On the track, it embarrassed heavier, more powerful rivals. The Carrera RS 2.7 became a legend almost overnight. It wasn't just a Porsche, it was the Porsche, the car that set the template for every 911 that followed. Collectors revere it as the holy grail of classic Porsches, with pristine examples commanding 7 figures at auction. For Paul Walker, it represented his deep appreciation for precision engineering and European motorsport pedigree. In a garage filled with American icons and Japanese legends, the RS 2.7 was proof of his refined taste. Owning one wasn't about celebrity, it was about respect for history. The Carrera RS 2.7 was a scalpel, honed by Porsche to slice through corners and chase trophies. But Walker's collection wasn't only about surgical precision. It also included cars that balanced everyday usability with motorsport DNA. Next was another Bavarian creation, not as stripped as the RS, but still rare and iconic. Top 5, 1988, BMW M3 E30. If the Porsche 911 Carrera RS 2.7 was Europe's scalpel, then the BMW E30 M3 was its street fighter. In the late 1980s, BMW Motorsport built a car that looked like a compact coupe but drove like a touring car straight out of the paddock. Paul Walker's collection included one, a nod to the car that defined a generation of drivers. The E30 M3 was born out of necessity. To compete in Group A touring car racing, BMW had to build 5,000 road-going versions. The result was a boxy two-door coupe transformed into a motorsport weapon. On the outside, every panel was different from the standard 3 Series. The flared fenders, raised trunk lid, raked rear window, and aggressive front air dam were all engineered for aerodynamics. A high-rise rear wing sealed the silhouette. Finished in shades like alpine white or brilliant red, it looked more purposeful than pretty, as if speed itself had reshaped the metal. Inside, the cabin was still recognizably BMW, clear analog gauges, supportive sport seats, and a driver-centric cockpit. But the M3 carried subtle differences. Heavier bolstering held the driver in place, and optional cloth or leather trim hinted at comfort without compromising function. It wasn't stripped bare like the later lightweight, but every detail served the mission of performance. The magic came from the engine. Instead of a 6-cylinder, BMW fitted the 2.3-liter S14 inline-4, a high-revving unit producing 192 horsepower and 170 pound-feet of torque in US trim. It revved freely to 7,000 RPM, sending power through a close-ratio 5-speed manual. With a curb weight of around 2,645 pounds, the E30 M3 sprinted from 0 to 60 mph in 6.7 seconds and covered the quarter-mile in the mid-15s. Numbers alone didn't tell the story. On a twisty road or a racing circuit, the M3's balance and razor-sharp steering humbled more powerful cars. And while BMW built over 17,000 E30 M3s worldwide, each one carried racing DNA. Championships followed, DTM, BTCC, World Touring Car proving it was no mere homologation afterthought. For Paul Walker, owning an E30 M3 was about honoring a legend. It wasn't the fastest in his stable, but it was one of the most influential. The E30 proved that a 4-cylinder could punch far above its weight if paired with balance, precision, and engineering obsession. Collectors now regard it as the genesis of the M3 dynasty, the car that started it all. Today, clean E30 M3s command staggering prices at auction, with special editions like the Evo models climbing even higher. For enthusiasts, the value isn't just monetary, it's cultural. The E30 M3 wasn't just another 1980 sports coupe, it was the benchmark by which all others were judged. The 1988 BMW E30 M3 stands as proof that greatness doesn't always roar with displacement. Sometimes it sings at high revs, framed by flared fenders and forged on racetracks. Its legend is complete, its place in history secure, and its shadow stretches over every M car that came after. From Detroit's brute force Boss 429 to Porsche's featherweight Carrera RS 2.7, and from BMW's razor-edged M3 Lightweight to the iconic E30, Paul Walker's secret collection proved that his passion went far deeper than Hollywood fame. These weren't just cars, they were milestones of engineering, history, and rarity, chosen with the eye of a true enthusiast. Today they stand as legends, reminders of what it means to love cars for their soul as much as their speed. Which of these 5 rare classics would you most want parked in your garage? Share your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button, subscribe, and don't forget to ring the bell for more untold legends here on Muscle Cars Revolution.